Hey, so what's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and this is Regular Guy Training. So, the review, obviously, is on what's on my head, right? So, let's go ahead and talk about this really quick. You guys have seen a lot of just imagery and shoot footage of me wearing these glasses. If you come out to various courses, more often than not, you see these on my head, right? So, let's talk about this for a second, right? Oakley is very widely regarded as a quality either sunglass manufacturer or an eye pro manufacturer. And for a while, the U.S. military was using these as issue equipment. Not these specifically, but they were using Oakley as an OEM for their eye protection. Since then, they've gone over to Wiley X, probably because of monetary issue. But with that being said, it's one of those things where there are a lot of people that talk a lot about guns and gear and all this other shit, and I thought that this was actually fairly relevant, mostly because everybody who comes out to a class or something like that is going to be wearing some kind of eye protection. And I've been asked before, hey, what eye pro should I wear? Well, as far as eye protection is concerned, I do have a little bit of a criteria for it. Number one, I like the Gascan specifically, because they just cover up more, right? As you could probably tell, when we're doing a lot of shooting or what have you, and when we're sitting there doing a lot of this game, where we're doing a lot of shooting and stuff, especially on the left-handed side, the E-port's right here on my face, right? Now, that's relevant because lubrication that's in the gun, carbon, all kinds of shit goes right into here, okay? Especially if it's raining really hard and it's sapping all of the liquid lubrication out of the gun, and stuff gets dry very quickly when it's raining. And then you have to sit there and hit it again. And, okay, there's water and lubrication in there, so it's going right in your face. So there's that. It has a lot of coverage. You can see it covers up quite a bit on the head, and it wraps around pretty well, right? The additional thing here is, and this is one of those deals where, we don't think about this fairly often until we have to do this for hours, right? When you throw on ear protection of some kind, right? What tends to happen is right when you throw your ear protection on, most likely muffs. If you're doing the ear inserts, great, but most likely on the muffs, right? You start to get this really fucking annoying binding feeling, and it feels like it's squeezing on your temples, because it is, right? So what's neat about these is that they're fairly thin profiled, right? So whatever it is that I'm wearing, and I could have a set of these on, I could have a set of contacts on that are hooked up on a Mitch, that kind of thing. They don't squeeze because the profile is so thin that there isn't like a circular bar being pushed into your head by your ear protection or whatever. So regardless to what, ear protection setup or communication setup that I have on my head, I just get less of that personally. Now, I've walked around and I've talked to a bunch of guys, and they'll sit there and they'll have fucking bumping headaches in the middle of a class, and I see them throughout the day. They're pounding water and all this shit, and it turns out it's their eye pro, right? So that's one of the biggest reasons why I personally like these. Now, I touched on the optical quality, but I'm going to get on it more here, because I view this as fairly important to a degree, right? So when we're talking about hooking up with an individual rifle and we're getting ready to go shoot it, right? What we have when we throw on our eye protection is that we have our ocular lens that's receiving light and then projecting an image, so that's already one lens, right? That then has to go through a second lens, that then has to go through two more, right? Now, why is this relevant? Well, if we are walking around with like the $5 pair of eye protection, you may notice that when you're sitting in the prone and you're zeroing and all that stuff, okay, cool, it's dead on, okay, great. But then when you get into an awkward position or something like that and you're starting to shoot farther away, you notice that your dope is shifting dramatically, right? And a lot of times, most of the time, I will sit there and be like, well, we do have to go out to those extended ranges, and we do have to collect dope on where we're impacting with the particular ammo that we have, and there's shooter issues and all that other shit. But the next thing that I approach, and this is usually on someone that I know shoots well generally, right? The next thing that I approach is I'll start looking at the eye protection. And there have been several cases where, you know, the dude who's wearing that $5 set from like a gas station or whatever, right? He'll be wearing that set, and I'll be like, just pull the eye pro off for a second and shoot. So he'll go ahead, he'll pull the eye pro off for a second, he'll go ahead and shoot, and he's ringing the shit out of the steel or whatever the fuck that we're shooting at greater distance. And it's like, So then I hand him these, and that performance continues. And then over time, for some reason, he ends up back with his original eye pro or whatever, and the problem that we had dealt with before persists. And really that's just because of the quality of the lens and the consistency of the lens. A lot of times they are, because of how cheap it is, generally speaking, it's not like there's a whole lot of attention being paid to the little pane of glass or acrylic or whatever that's in front of your face, right? So how consistent that is can fuck with you at greater distances with your rifle, right? So aside of the fact that this has good coverage, the fact that it's thin and it doesn't have all that, and doesn't have that pressing issue, it also makes life just a little bit easier, because I've never really had that kind of an issue ever while wearing a set of Oakleys or a set of Wiley X eye pro or something like that, right? So this is one of those things where I'm going to highly recommend a set of these. If I were to go back, I would have spent a little bit of extra money for polarizing lenses, mostly because as we're dealing with a sun coming up or a sun coming down, we start getting light shifts. And as the light is beginning to shift, our eyes, because the light is changing as rapidly as it is kind of struggling to compensate. And these stay at the same tint the whole time because they're non-polarizing, right? Like they don't change the shade based on the amount of available light out. And a lot of you guys may have seen it before where it's like with the polarizing lenses, it just fucks with you looking at your cell phone or whatever. But it really helps if we're trying to shoot outside and it's getting darker, right? Simply because the tint in the lenses is backing off to where we can just see better, right? And when it comes to like this kind of deal, I thoroughly understand Oakley's fucking expensive. I thoroughly do. But me personally, I choose not to skimp, does that make sense, on that particular thing, because while I can certainly, while I can certainly make stuff like this work, the only regret that I have with these is that, okay, now it's, let's say it's daylight savings time because it's coming soon, and it's like 8:30, and it's getting kind of dark, and it's getting harder to see, and now I'm cranking dot brightness a lot and all that shit. It's just easier to deal with, and realistically, it's not that big of a difference. It really isn't. It's not a make or break type thing. It just makes your life a little bit easier with the polarized lenses and shit. So, there's that. So for those of you who don't know, Oakley fucks around with a military discount, and it does help, especially if you go to like replace lenses and things like that. So, there you go. So, that's it for me. If you want to come out and train with us, we certainly have a lot of classes available currently. We travel kind of all over the damn place. So I'll leave a link in the description below as to the classes that we have available. Rifle stuff is coming, I promise. As of right now, we have pistol and shotgun classes open, ready to go. So if you're in that area, or if you're fairly close, I would absolutely get hooked up and come out and train with us. So, I mean, because we have guys signing up for the September classes, so I don't assume that they're going to be available all the way up until the class date, because we've had the Arkansas dates up for a few months now, and and it was sold out in like a month and a half, right? So if there's any questions on availability, just look at the website, just look at the class itself, and if it says sold out, then it is. See, so if you can sign up for it, I would. If you want to support us through Patreon, it goes pretty damn far. Aside of the fact that if you are a teacher that is allowed to carry in your school, obviously there's a verification process. Through the website, you have my contact information is there. You can contact me pretty easily. Or a school resource officer, again, same verification process. We teach you guys for free forever. Mostly in response to what the fuck is going on as far as current administration and talks are going. So if you're one of those guys and you want to come out and get some training for us tuition free, certainly give us a shout. As far as a sign-up process for that is concerned, just shoot me an email and we'll go back and forth and we'll figure out what's going on with you. Similar to that, if you support us through Patreon and if you want to sign up for a $35 a month thing, that is a system in which you can train with us for as long as you want, so long as you're signed up to that. And all you have to do is some simple math, look at our full price listing, and it's a system designed to be abused by dudes that just unload their current target ammunition on training, right? Same thing with those guys. If you're signing up for a class or something like that, again, shoot me an email if you're a $35 a month Patreon guy and be like, I want to go to X. I'll verify it really quick on my end, and then I'll put you on the roster. It's that simple, right? So really, that's all that is. If you want to join our discussion page on Facebook and ask any litany of questions that you have, it's there. There's like 16,000 plus people on it, and all kinds of good discussions go on. So, if it were me, I would be on that page personally. And I visit it fairly frequently just to see what's going on and all of that. So, check that out if you feel the need to. So, with that being said, guys, remember, regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.